Welcome to Newton's Macabre Tales. To find more free short stories, visit www.newtonweb.com with 2 B's. Welcome to Paradise by Newton Webb. The sound of birds woke David. He groaned and pushed back the thick duvet. Sunlight poured in through the windows as he snuggled deeper into the comfy mattress. Where was he? This wasn't his bed. He had something important to ask someone, but he couldn't remember who or what. He opened his eyes and sat bolt upright, triggering a splitting headache. His mind felt muddled. A man in a pure white suit was sitting next to his bed, beaming with a beneficent grin. Hello, David. Who are you? Where am I? David threw the sheets back. His heart was racing. It's okay, David. Your memory will return in time. You died, and are now in paradise. I'm here to manage your onboarding process. A kind of spiritual liaison, if you like. Died? How? David rubbed the side of his head. I'm not dead. You will remember in time. The important thing is to get you settled. My name is Asrobius, and I'll be helping you with your eternity in paradise. The smile was constant, his teeth painfully white. I'll let you get dressed and wait for you on the veranda. David waited for him to leave, then rose and removed the soft white pajamas he found he was wearing. Padding barefoot across the thick pile carpet, he marvelled at the marble walls and floor tiles. Beautiful frescoes adorned the walls. He admired a depiction of a group of angels feeding apples to the poor. Opening the wardrobe, he pulled a face. No Iron Maiden in paradise, apparently. He flicked through a selection of pastel colours that would make a geography teacher's dress sense seem risque. David pulled on some light blue jeans and a tight white vest. Asrobius was waiting, as promised, with 2 glasses of champagne. They toasted as they overlooked the beautiful marble city. Children played in a nearby park. Birds sang and, good Lord! The hymns rose in a discordant mess to jar his ears. David couldn't see how they could sing worse. Timing, tone, and pitch were all enthusiastic, yet abominable. What is that ghastly noise? Asrobius winced. Paradise is an all-inclusive place, where we encourage everybody to join us in church and sing. This means we get every level of ability, with the associated issues that causes. After the briefest of deliberation, Asrobius locked eyes with David. We encourage it. It's a wondrous social activity. It really flexes the lungs. Pulling a face, David took a sip of champagne. What now? Now you enjoy the little spot you've earned in paradise. There are some rules, though. Asrobius put on his best stern face, managing to look like a wounded puppy. This mansion is all yours, but you are responsible for maintenance. Paradise has limited space and lots of new guests. So we start people in mansions and then move them down housing grades if they cannot look after them. With all the newcomers, it's almost impossible to move back up a grade. Something to be wary of. Waving at all the different beautiful buildings below them, Asrobius smiled. We just want everybody to end up in the property that is right for them. David's mind was niggling at him. Through the mental fog, he clutched at a thought. I've a wife. Where is she? Whipping out a pristine new notepad and flipping through it, Asrobius frowned. Nothing here, David. I would wait until your memories return. I've been doing this for 6,000 years, and we've not misplaced anyone yet. Running his finger over the marble tabletop, Asrobius frowned. Dust already! It never ceases to amaze me just how fast it accumulates on marble. What about money? Asrobius laughed. Money? You're in paradise! No mortgage, no bills, And the finest food and equipment will automatically fill your pantry. We have Tuscan tomatoes, truffles from Florence, wines from France. He looked at the glass critically. Before climate change ruined the harvest, I might add. He raised his glass. Just enjoy your afterlife. Smiling, David clinked his champagne flute in a toast. No work, everything for free. He exhaled, the stress rolling off his body like a maritime fog. As Robius stood and bowed, "With that, I fear I must leave you. Other clients and all that. No rest for the angelic. I shall return tomorrow to check in with you." Following Asrobius to the large double doors downstairs and waving goodbye, he marvelled once more at his pillared front porch and extensive garden. Heading back inside, he explored his wondrous new palace. Finding the stoppered bottle of champagne, he poured himself another glass. Contemplating breakfast, he opened the fridge. It was rammed. The scent of fresh herbs and vegetables was delightful. Ferreting around for the bacon and eggs, he was left disappointed. The contents were entirely vegan. Thinking about it, he realized that slaughterhouses weren't really on brand for paradise. So pulling out tofu, he scrambled it with fried garlic and chives. To finish, he grated fresh turmeric and black truffle over the top, finally seasoning it with some ground pepper. Taking the dish to the veranda, he ate with gusto while planning his day. Seeing the line drawn in the dust by Asrobius, he sighed. Day one in paradise would have to involve a proper spring clean then. As he finished his breakfast, he hunted down the cleaning implements. The cast iron pans were great to cook with, but he had to use steel wool to clean them as they had yet to be seasoned. Blitzing the house, he hoovered, mopped, and dusted each room in turn until he cleaned all the downstairs rooms to his satisfaction. Lunch was toast with hummus, topped with sesame seeds and a slice of lemon. Cracked black pepper added texture and heat to his dish. There were no toasters in paradise, it seemed. No electric kettles either. But the bread and hummus were truly outstanding. Gathering up his cleaning implements, he rose for his next challenge. Upstairs. Suddenly, rage filled him. A rust-coloured mould was forming at the bottom of the stairs on the marble. He fell to his knees and he scrubbed frantically until it was all gone, breathing heavily. Sitting back on his haunches, he laughed. What was that all about? Mould? Was he so precious that he couldn't tolerate a blemish on his otherwise perfect home? Taking the equipment upstairs, he carried on cleaning. Exhausted, it wasn't until sunset that he finished and got to recline in an easy chair with a bottle of red. The evening dinner was a simple one. He cooked some fresh pasta, tossed it through with olive oil, rock salt, diced tomato, basil leaves and fried garlic, and devoured it heartily. The wine was exceptional. As David drank it, a vague memory stirred relating to his wife. He was in the hills in Sicily, drinking red wine with his wife Beth. He raced downstairs for olives. As he munched on them upstairs, more memories returned. He could see Beth now. Beautiful auburn hair, thick curls, and a smile that could pierce the coldest heart. Warmth flowed through him, and he leaned back in his chair, drank his wine, and held the image of the love of his life in his mind. A stabbing pain brought him back to earth, or paradise at any rate. Rubbing at his temple, he wandered around checking cupboards. After a while he gave up and returned to his wine. Apparently, paracetamol wasn't a thing in paradise either. It made sense. Big Pharma was probably turned away at the door. Another question for Asrobius. As the night air cooled, he gently dozed and didn't remember dragging himself off to bed. The morning was heralded by birdsong, off-key hymns, and a truly horrendous hangover. Why would they have hangovers in paradise? He jerked as he saw Asrobius looming over him. Stop letting yourself into my home. Ring the bell like a normal person. The angelic being's brilliant white teeth accentuated his pounding headache. Of course! I'll make a note of that, David. Pulling out his notepad, he scribbled for a moment. If I may say so, you appear quite discombobulated this morning. It's a hangover, David confessed. Why exactly would they exist in paradise? Asrobius patted David's shoulder sympathetically. Free will, David. When you drank all that wine, you made a conscious decision to have a hangover. We'd never rob you of that. Free will is the greatest gift humanity ever received. We sadly do not have the same gift, existing only as servants of the Almighty. Well, you are welcome to have my hangover, David muttered. Wouldn't want you feeling left out. You're very funny, David. I enjoy my visits. Looking closely for sarcasm, David decided he was probably genuine. Look, give me a minute, and I'll see you on the veranda. As Asrobius bowed politely and left, David fumbled around getting dressed. His headache was spectacular today. David joined Asrobius later, dressed in his pastel clothes once more. He accepted a glass of champagne with him, hair of the dog, and sat down with a grunt. Beth is my wife's name. Any news? She'd love this house. David, that's wonderful news. Your memories are returning to you. Oh, I am so happy for you. You will soon be able to answer that question yourself. I have full faith that she is exactly where she belongs. Raising his glass, they both toasted her memory. I'm so happy that you're settling in well. Have you gone out and socialized yet? I haven't had a chance. I deep cleaned the house yesterday. The hymns started up again with a newfound fervour, causing David to narrow his eyes. If you wake up in time, I do recommend the choir. David snorted. No, mate, not a chance. He finished his drink. Who's Ben? Who? Asrobius cocked an eyebrow. Shrugging, David looked puzzled. I don't know. But I just know it's important to me that I find out. Patting him on the shoulder, Asrobius stood. You'll get there soon. The transition takes time, that's all. Patience. Pulling out an envelope, he handed it to David. Your daily inspection. Fairly good. Except for a rather ugly patch of mould. Asrobius didn't get to finish his review, as David, swearing furiously, leapt up and tore down the stairs. The mould was back. This time it was more prominent. The rust-coloured patch had reached the wall and was starting to creep across it. Racing into the kitchen, he wet the cloth and ran back to rub it clean. Vigorously scrubbing, he sat back panting after his exertions. Are you quite all right, David? A concerned voice drifted down the stairs as Asrobius descended. I'm sorry. I overreacted. I hate this mould. This house is perfect in every other way. It infuriates me. Perhaps there's a damp problem there. David saw him out and wandered into the kitchen to prepare himself a breakfast of baked flat mushrooms in garlic, olive oil, fresh tomato, and panko breadcrumbs. Scrubbing the tray clean, he noticed dust on the work surfaces. He wiped them down, finding more dirt. David realized he hadn't been as thorough as he thought yesterday. Resigning himself, he got up and resumed cleaning. Breaking for a light lunch of garlic bread and a tossed salad, he had a memory of himself. He was in a restaurant kitchen. In the memory, he was angry, shouting at the kitchen staff over some error, when she arrived and took him outside. The memory came into crystal-like focus. She'd kissed his hands, and the rage had fled. As he'd stared into her eyes, he'd wondered how he'd come to be so lucky. It was then that she'd told him that she was pregnant. A tear fell down his cheek as he remembered the waves of emotion that had flowed over him. They'd been so happy that they'd danced in the street. They'd wept unashamedly. Tears returned to him as he remembered shouting his news to the sky. Was Ben his son? Who was he? The question kept rolling around in his brain. Who was Ben? He had a glass of wine and then cleaned the upstairs of the mansion. It was late when he'd finished, but every surface sparkled. He cooked a quick dinner of oven-roasted red peppers and fennel, then shallow-fried aubergine slices coated in garlic and tomato puree before being dipped in panko breadcrumbs. He scrubbed the pans down and oiled them. Now he could remember doing this in the kitchens on Earth. David actually enjoyed the activity. Taking his dinner upstairs to the veranda, he quickly devoured it and happily sat watching as the sun sank below the horizon. It was truly beautiful here in paradise. The bottle of wine he took with him slowly evaporated. He smiled at the god-awful hymns. At least he got free wine. "David!" The softly spoken word jerked him into consciousness. "I said knock! Don't just invade my house!" David's head felt as though someone had taken an ice pick to his right temple. He whimpered with pain and rubbed it with his knuckles. "You didn't answer, David. I knocked for a very long time. I had to see you as I have some rather bad news." He looked up to see the concern in Asrobius's eyes. "What is it?" Sitting, David clutched at his temple. Of all the days to have to deal with this. I'm afraid your maintenance isn't up to scratch. I'm here to give you your first warning." Rage blossomed in David's heart, and he threw back the sheets. Sitting up rapidly, he stopped only when his head erupted into fresh needles of pain. "What do you mean?" "The mold, David. You have a responsibility to—" Leaping up, ignoring the pain, David raced downstairs. The mold had spread all across the footwell and was now spreading even further up the wall. Pulling off his nightshirt, he rubbed at the stain. "David, you're not being very rational." Ignoring the angelic being at the top of the stairs, David ran to the kitchen, tossing the contents of the cupboard aside until he found the bleach spray. He raced to the foot of the stairs to furiously scrub at the mold. His eyes were red and wet with rage. "I'm very concerned for you, David. Let's talk." The mold was gone. For now. David lay back exhausted and in pain. "I don't want a morning, I just want a different house. Help me. Help me, please." A hand rested on his shoulder. "Of course, David. Come with me. I'm here to see that you get the paradise that you deserve." Asrobius took David by his hand and led him from the mansion. It was David's first time outside, but he took nothing in. People stared at the shirtless man in his pyjama bottoms, and he couldn't blame them. He didn't care anymore. Next door was a smaller, but still beautiful house. A weak smile crossed his face. With relief, he reflected that it would be easier to look after. Opening the front door, the staircase was different, the house was different. But when he looked over to the footwell, he saw the same mold, even bigger now. He screamed and fell to his knees, the pain of landing on marble eclipsed by his frustration and the searing agony in his head. "David?" He turned to Asrobius. He just felt numb now. "Paradise isn't heaven." Asrobius nodded. "Of course it's not. David, why would you end up there?" David remembered. He remembered being at home. He'd been so angry. "Who's Ben?" he'd shouted at his heavily pregnant wife. "Who the fuck is Ben?" Crack! His palm had smashed into her cheek. She'd stumbled, and he'd watched in horror as she fell down the stairs. He'd followed and cradled her head as blood flowed across the footwell. What had he done? What had he done? How could she be dead? He'd loved her so much, yet he'd killed her. He'd walked numbly to the gun cabinet. Arterial blood, leaving red prints behind him. Pulling out his pistol, he'd pressed it against his temple and pulled the trigger. The sound of birds woke David. He groaned and pushed back the thick duvet. Sunlight poured in through the windows as he snuggled deeper into the comfy mattress. Where was he? This wasn't his bed. He had something important to ask someone, but he couldn't remember who or what. He opened his eyes and sat bolt upright, triggering a splitting headache. His mind felt muddled. A man in a pure white suit was sitting next to his bed, beaming with a magnificent grin. Hello, David. Thank you for listening. To get notified every time a new episode is released, please click follow or subscribe and turn on all notifications. If you enjoyed this episode, then please take a moment to rate Newton's Macabre Tales. Reviewing allows the podcast to grow.